greenery and trees and plants, and I think all these things have in common is what I think I made a discovery relatively recently. Obviously, the color green is one of the colors known to symbolize wealth and money and cash. But I've seen proof of it recently. My little cousin Ricky. I had to pick him up from his school today. Not today, yesterday. And I'm in his area visiting family. I've never been to his school before, to his high school before. So I go to this high school. Not only is it huge, it's incredible. It's a sight to behold. Honestly, the size of this place, but it's full of it's got a nice giant green field outside, like a soccer pitch. And as I walk through the front doors of this place, I walk into the atrium of this place. There's a whole fully grown tree inside of this building, in the middle of their like main staircase. And I was astonished, because at least coming from my personal experiences, you don't usually see greenery inside of a building unless it's potted plants or any sort of like small shrubbery or plants like that. But to see a fully grown, oversized tree in the middle of this building, I was a little taken aback. And so I'm at the office there. I'm signing in to pick up my little cousin, and I go, that tree out there, what was the idea behind that? And they tell me, like, the school was built in a period of prosperity, and a period where there's a little more money to go around, especially in the world of education. There's more money. There's more money to go around in these schools, and I guess the extravagancy of the building's architecture, and that was part of it. It was just really, that was the main contributing factor to this giant tree being in this building. It's an acceptable answer, but I think whose idea was it behind this? What is the tree meant? What part of the architecture of this building does the tree serve? What does it serve a practical purpose? And it may seem kind of closed-minded to think that way. Not everything in the building is, or any sort of design for that matter is something with purposeful intent or a function that serves a practical purpose. A lot of times things are put in buildings for design purposes, for artistic purposes. That could be one of them. But it's just a little strange to me that the thing that would come to mind to know what can we put in this building to show, to really give it that extra mile, give it that oomph, so to speak, was to just put a tree in it. And it's not like there's trees anywhere else inside the school. It's just there. The rest of the school is pretty standard fare, part of the course. But it's just that tree really stuck out to me, and it made me think about. It made me think about the economy. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. There's no money's been relocated, money's been put in different places. There's not as much money to go into extravagancies like that and little, unique little things like that. There's rather conservative in terms of what money is spent now, especially in education. But just to spend that amount of money on the layout and design of that school and putting the tree in there is just almost kind of ridiculous, to be honest. Because we have, if you go outside at that school, there's no shortage of trees. There's no shortage of shrubs and hedges and a sizable soccer pitch, as I said before. There's no shortage of green scenery around that location. So the choice to put it inside there is just, I don't know, it was just a little odd. It's not, it's not negative, of course. Actually, I thought it looked quite nice, if not, a little ridiculous in concept. But it's just a strange decision. But the thing about, even moving away from schools, that school's in a relatively populated area, but it's that specific plot of land. There's the school is there, and there's the theater, like an opera house is there. It really is a lot of contrast with the rest of the area, because the rest of the area is mainly like business buildings, pretty gray architecture, like strictly glass buildings, very business oriented, very plain, very industrial almost. And then the smaller buildings, a lot of brick buildings. So yeah, it's a bit of a contrast between that school's plot and the neighborhoods over there, and the rather, the drab architecture of the surrounding area. And it just makes it, it shows the passage of time, because a lot of these things were, a lot of these buildings and land developments are, they're made during different time periods, different codes, different, design philosophies between these times. That's how I've always thought it's interesting that they're called design philosophies too, because it's a term that makes sense. It makes sense, it's philosophy within the world of art and within the world of design. But it's interesting because, a lot of the time you think about the term philosophy, it's very, it's very rooted in, the mind and human action, which obviously, you say it out loud, it's very relatively obvious that it connects to any form of human behavior. But I don't know, it just, you think of philosophy, you think of philosophers, you think of your ancient Greeks and your European philosophers, famous philosophers over time. Most of them are relatively well-known, household names at this point, but it's just interesting to think that even, artists and designers are capable of their own, specialized type of philosophy. But that's kind of besides the point. The main point being, these buildings, they have a lot of different characteristics between one another, so that there's not, if you were to get an overhead, top-down bird's-eye view of the city, that it would look very patchy. I feel there's a lot of patches of certain types of buildings and structures that don't match aesthetically to ones just up the road from the last one. I feel like if you were to look at it from that scope, it would be rather jarring, actually. but yeah, it's just it really makes you think about what the designers and the architectures and the land developers were thinking when they were choosing how they wanted these buildings to look, where they were putting these buildings. In my opinion, it's kind of an enigma almost, because a lot of it feels like they're just kind of phoning it in, right? Like, you have, obviously land development codes have changed, over time. That's kind of how everything changes. There's always going to be change in our societies and our lives and things like that. But, there's no boundary pushing, I feel like. I feel like the only boundaries that are being pushed are monetary ones, where it's, how far can we, how much can we make our budget stretch? How much can we take in from doing this in the least expensive way? There's not really a lot of boundary pushing in terms of what can we put here? How can we work within our restrictions, right? And it sounds, it's kind of defeatist to say so, but that's just the way things are. That's the way things are going to be. That's the change that buildings are going towards. Long history of buildings. It's very clear to see the change between all of them, but the days are melding together, and so are the buildings. I love audio podcasts.